Yeah, so my last 3 days here have been very good. So I learned a lot of new things. The most important thing that I learned here is how to travel by buses and metro in Bangalore. Uh, I mean, the public transport compared to Pune here is extremely good. That almost every place, that almost every place in Bangalore can be reached by either metro or bus, and and the prices are also extremely cheap. So we traveled a lot in the last 3 days. We also saw we also we also saw Visvasaraya Science Museum, uh, which was near Ambedkar Metro Station day before yesterday, which I liked a lot. Uh, and then and then since yesterday I am staying alone at the hotel. Uh, so, so, so I have I have also not spent much time before to stay alone. It was only one time around 8 years back when I was in college and I had gone to Bulgaria for an internship. So at that time I had stayed 45 days away from home, and then just for a few days in between.
Hello, this is Rupam, founder and creator of Lyfas. You just heard the voice of the individual who has been suffering from stuttering problem for past 20, 25 years, 25, 22 years in specific. Now in Lyfas, we don't just go on to ask how we solve the problem. We go very deep into the problem through technology. We have a mobile application through which we diagnose or we extract the biomarkers, 101 biomarkers, which gives us a profile of psychophysiology, physiopathology, neuropathy, vasculopathy, and cognition of an individual. We also acquire a very detailed patient history, his life, his behaviors, his aspirations, ambitions, and then, if required, we also ingest a lot of traditional tests such as blood test, fMRI, MRI, CT, X-ray, etc. And we do analyze them through our sophisticated medical diagnosis software, which finally gives us a very structured and clustered information, the important information which helps us to get to the root of the problem. Now, you heard the voice of the individual who has been suffering from this stuttering problem. This individual has been going to various speech therapies, various psychologists, and various speech therapies taught him different methodologies which would work for a day or two, and then he will relapse. So, in following few minutes, you are going to see how do we analyze a problem with Lyfas. And finally, at the end of this presentation, you will again hear the voice of the individual after the therapeutics. Once we analyzed his problem, we designed a therapeutics, and his overall improvement in the speech will be heard at the end of this video. Hello, now let's go back to the analysis part. When we took 3 days of Lyfas test 3 times a day and analyzed it with our Linear AI, we got several insights about the individual's health, overall health, that helped us to understand what we were looking at. First of all, the major important contributor for his stuttering problem was the circadian quality. If you look at his morning stress, afternoon stress, and night stress, you'd understand that the individual got up fresh in the morning, and then as the day progressed, his stress increased almost 30% of the overall autonomic profile, which means that he was feeling nervous, he continuously felt devastated while talking to his colleagues, while presenting in the office, while interacting with the world, interacting with the friends, and even after he came back at home, the stress reduced but not enough for him to be relaxed. So overall, it was the stress that he was dealing with, and this stress, because whenever you are in high stress, your corticosteroid goes higher, and therefore there was an insulin resistance. And because of this constant stress, his focus and attention was missing. This was also apparent by his constant body movement and his constant shaking, which led uh, to an early diagnosis of anxiety. We also found out that his sleep was quite low, about 5 hours. But what was very important for us to detect was that his HbO2 PC, HbO2 percentage, that is the oxygen that mixes with the hemoglobin, was very, very low. It's about 76%. And so it means that he had a problem in speaking, which was he was not able to contribute enough oxygen and therefore energy to his voices. We also understood that his feelings were quite down, which means that he was not enjoying the life, he was not having any pleasure, he was not enjoying the interaction, he was not in the moment, he was not feeling anything which was very happy for him. His biological aging was very accelerated, and these factors told us that he is an individual who is stuttering as a compensatory mechanism to his stress problem. And we also understood, because this was continuing for 20 years, that there were stressors that went back to early childhood and his development years. When we analyze the stress, because we understood stress is the major contributor, at different days, at different time period, we took the stress profile and we compared. And as you may be seeing from the screen, that it is persistently over 30% of the autonomic profile, which means that his body had to work almost 30 to 40% harder in a normal settings in order to interact. And his parasympathetic nervous system, which is our compensation to any stress, which is the rest and recovery system, was exceedingly low, which means that he had no relaxation, no healing, no comfort after a days of stress. In general, whenever an individual has a very high stress, often the individual's energy becomes exceedingly negative. The meaning of negative energy is a catabolism. When whatever you eat, body cannot generate sufficient amount of energy from your food, and then it breaks down the tissues and muscles of itself to produce energy, which is known as the catabolism. But when we looked into the energy profile of the individual, the metabolism looked quite good. The energy was in the green zone, which means that the individual was not really in stress in his awareness. So rather, the stress was in the subconscious level. He was not really aware. He knew that there was a stress, but he was not really aware of that stress, and the stress got completely suppressed in the subconscious level. The energy was perfectly high. Now, in general, whenever somebody has extreme amount of stress, the energy goes into the negative zone, into the catabolic zone. So what we understood was that the individual had no issue dealing with the world, though there was a subconscious stress, and that subconscious stress goes back several years in his life, in the early development years. When we look into his mood profile, in general, in lifers, the mood levels or the pleasure levels, how one is feeling, is often considered to be around 83 to 87. That's a good level. And if anything is below 80, there is a significant amount of thought disorder, lack of confidence, lack of pleasure that is identified. And when we analyzed his mood swing was more than 5 to 10%, which is a significant amount of mood changes, which is a significant amount of change in the way one feels in the physical environment. So we understood that there was this stress. The stress was not really handled in the aware brain where he was interacting, but it was constantly in his subconscious. So in our brain, the limbic brain system is the subconscious level, the amygdala system. So what we understood was that there was a significant amount of mood swing which was being faced by the amygdala, by the limbic brain of this individual, which is very high on the dopamine. So what we understood was there was this significant lack of dopamine sensitivity that was going on in his limbic brain. Now, dopamine is a neuroplasticity hormone, which means that the brain's liquidity, the ability of the brain to connect from between one part to another part, or the conductivity of the brain, depends significantly upon the dopamine. So when the dopamine goes low, the resistance within the part of the brain goes very higher, and the individual fails to connect to the brain and process the information properly. So what we understood was that there was a subconscious mood disorder and dopamine deficiency or insensitivity that was leading to the stuttering, because the brain was not really able to compose the speech, and it was not really able to transform the thoughts into the speech due to this dopamine deficiency. Those of you who are aware of the Lyfas test know that you hold your hand on the index, hold your phone on the index finger, and then we measure the amount of shaking your hand does. Now, this is the kinetic movement analysis that we do for the peripheral neuropathy. And when we analyze the peripheral neuropathy, peripheral nervous system of the individual, we saw a certain degree of hyperkinesis. Hyperkinesis means excessive movement of the body. This told us that not only the individual was suffering from a subconscious stress, significant amount of subconscious stress, not only that the individual had a dopamine deficiency or insufficiency or insensitivity, but at the same time, because of this subconscious stress, unaddressed stress, and because of this dopamine insufficiency and his brain's conductivity being low, his part of the brain was not coordinating, and therefore his motor cortex and his hippocampus, hypothalamus, and cerebellum, they were completely out of the sync. So he was moving his body to compensate for the signals, inappropriate signals that the motor cortex was generating. Now we know that speech is a motor function, that is our voice box. We have to move our hands, our mouth, our entire body. The speech needs to be speech is generated by the voice box, but there is a very complex process of generating the speech and managing the speech. And we now understood that there was an issue of the motor cortex synchronicity with the rest of the brain. Anxiety analysis is most important component of this entire analysis. The patient, or the individual rather, was visiting several psychologists and speech therapists, and he was under the anxiety medication. Now, often when an individual has hyperkinesis, movement of the hands and the body, he or she is always diagnosed as having an anxiety, but not necessarily the hyperkinesis is a result of an anxiety. Anxiety by definition is a cognitive dissonance. That means when one doesn't see a coherence of his thoughts, his feelings with the real life, he becomes anxious. So, this is called the neuroticism. Neuroticism is the first step of a psychosis, which means that this is a disorder by means of which the body has to constantly adjust to the reality, the external environment, because the internal environment, the sentiments, the feelings, and the thoughts is completely different from what it is observed. And it often results because there is always a constant adjustment. Often one gets hyperkinesis, but hyperkinesia doesn't always is an outcome of an anxiety. So when we analyze the anxiety of an individual, we found that there was no cognitive dissonance. Of course, this individual is a brilliant coder. With a cognitive dissonance, no one can become a good coder. You have to have a reality testing which should be very good to become a coder. Now, therefore, we first stopped all the anxiety medicines, the anxiolytics that the individual was given. Furthermore, when we tested the blood pressure, in general, in anxiety, what happens is the systolic blood pressure goes higher. Of course, it is neuroticism. The individual's blood pressure was normal. So we concluded that there was nothing, no anxiety that was playing a part over here. All the medications of the anxiety was stopped. Based on the above analysis, we did design a therapeutic program of 3 days, and we carried out counseling for the individual. We sat with the individual, understood the individual's life, we understood the childhood difficulties. We then mapped a family phenotyping of the individual and his parents and all other his colleagues. We made a profile, and based on that we designed a therapeutics. Now the next few seconds or about a minute or so, you are going to hear the voice of this individual after the recovery. Of course, the entire recovery is going to take maybe 3 to 6 years, but the very fact that for the first time he is confident, he is able to speak, he is able to carry out the social interaction, presenting his office meeting, getting into the office meeting without stuttering, is a great amount of relief for not only him but for his parents and all the people who care for him. Now you are going to hear his speech after this.
Hello, good morning. So today I'm going to talk about myself. So I have completed my BEIT in 2018. After that, I worked as an intern at a software company for a few months. After that, I continued as an employee at the same place. Then, now I have completed 5 years in that company, and my current position is senior software developer. I am a full stack developer as well as I do architecture work for my project. My hobbies are I like to play badminton, reading books, listening to music, uh, as well as going out with my friends to places with good nature. So today morning I woke up at 7:30, and my today's plan is that I am going to a marriage of my the office uh, friend, and then in the evening I have planned a badminton session with my school friends in the evening at 5 o'clock. Thank you.